I'm back. Ran out of space on my SD card, so my video shut down. And in the middle of recording my trouble I've been experiencing with my Desa stove that I purchased from Lowe's or Fireplace. Back to where we were on the remote, and been fighting trying to get this hooked up and testing the system and learning how it works, and I don't know if it's always been that way or not, but I found out that these two wires were turned around, and the white wire, which is the negative wire, was down here on the TP connector, which you have a TH, and on the back side of that there is a green wire coming from the remote over here that shuts it off and on. It hooks on the back side of here, and then you could hook it on the blade here too, but it comes in from the back, so it works better to hook it on the back side. And that actually is what tells the valve to turn off and on, depending on where you have the switch turned on over here. And then there's another wire up here that goes to the TPTH, which is a white wire back here. It comes from the remote also, and it plugs into the back side of the TPTH terminal here. And there again, there's got a terminal on the outside that is part of that system also. Anyway, this morning I started looking at the manual some more, and it actually shows in the manual it's supposed to be red and a black wire, which it's not, a red and white. White usually is your common workaround, and red of course is usually your positive. For whatever reason, I don't know if I turn them around during the time that I've been testing this thing, trying to figure out what's wrong with it, but they were actually turned around, which I don't think. I think they were always that way, and I don't know if it was hooked up wrong from the very beginning. But anyway, I did turn them around so that they were on correctly. Don't know whether that had anything to do with it. My thermopile, after finally getting my multimeter that reads millivolts, was finding out that it was not putting out enough voltage to light the fire. So anyway, I'm gonna hook my multimeter back up here to the valve so I can show you what happened. So this morning, once I got that hooked up, I was finding that my voltage without the switch on, which once you turn the switch on does draw your voltage down, usually cuts it about in half, but the pilot burns, and that's what keeps your thermopile energized, because the two different types of metal that are used inside the thermocoupler. And I'm going to shut this thing off right now. It is not only getting hot, but I'll show you how I fix this. So I just turn the switch off down here off the remote, and I will go ahead and shut the remote off as well. And that little beep just tells me that is just a confirmation that I did shut the remote off. Shut the system down. So, as you can see, the pilot is lit right there. And that's what heats up the thermal pile and also the thermocoupler, which is a little different style. Usually they're a little tiny rod, small rod, instead of that big fat one, which that is actually the thermal pile, the bigger one. And you can't, I don't know if I can really show you, but on the back side there is kind of a little, looks like a diode that actually is soldered to the side of the pilot orifice, which is inside that red piece, and that's all red from the heat. And then that's what keeps the pilot light lit, is the one that's on the other side. You can't hardly see it, and I don't think you could see it when I put my camera back there because it's dark enough that you can't see it. Not that big of a deal, but it's not your standard. What you see is a thermocoupler on everything you've ever seen that's gas related. But it does have a wire that's soldered on the side of that senses that, obviously, that red hot pilot, and tells the pilot light that there's actual flame there, and keeps the pilot regulator inside the valve. Tells it that it is, pilot is indeed lit, and that to keep the valve open. If that goes, if I was to blow that out right now, or unhook that thermocoupler, like I said down here, this little white lead here, which is actually, looks like a wire, it's actually a insulated two-piece connector. It's got a wire inside and then an outer side sheath, and then it's coated in plastic, which is something I've never seen before. Usually there's just a copper outer sheath, and then there's an inner wire, and basically that just is ground and then a small voltage coming from the thermocoupler that keeps that valve energized. And so right now, like I said, there you can see the little white wire coming up there that is hooked on the side of that pilot assembly, and that part of the system is always worked. And last year, like I said, the system quit. Now the pilot would stay lit, but it would never, the burner would never light. And has significant health issues, so limited on what I can do. And not to mention the energy I have to do it. So I'm finally decided to try to fix this year. It looks like we're going to have a bad year, bad winter, and this is the only heat we have in the house if the electricity goes out. So in my pursuit of doing that, I'm learning how this system works, and hopefully I can help somebody else diagnose their system. Right now you can see that the voltage went up from like 140 up to 300 millivolts from 100 and approximately 40 to 50 millivolts it was running before. And the reason it was half that voltage was because we had the valve energized. So we were pulling the voltage that was coming from the thermopile up here in half, which usually they won't run. They definitely will not start if they're under 190 millivolts to 250, somewhere in there. Won't even start. And that's why initially, I figured out that's why my system's not coming on, because my thermopile is not getting hot enough to create enough millivolts to start the system. So if I turn that switch on right now, you're going to see the millivolts drop in half, and you'll see it drop down almost immediately as I turn that on. Well, there's not enough voltage there to initiate the valve, so the system's not turning on, and that's why it hasn't been working for the last year. So I'll shut that back off, and you'll see the voltage go right back up to 305 millivolts. So what that's telling me is either my flame's not hot enough to heat up the thermopile, or the thermogenerator, which it generates electricity, therefore generator, called by many different names, but it all means the same thing and does the same thing. So anyway, what I did to get this started and why it was running earlier before I shut it off was I took my handy dandy propane torch here and I put a little extra heat on the thermopile. Well, when I did that, immediately started seeing my millivolts go up, and I got up to 500 plus millivolts, which this is a 750 millivolt system. Basically that's your top end is what that means. And so anyway, once it got up to the higher millivolts, it had enough energy to put energy through these wires to turn on the main valve burner. And so what that's telling me is that either, like I said, don't have enough heat getting on that, which nothing's changed. So that tells me that my thermopile or my thermogenerator is not generating enough electricity, DC volts, millivolts I should say, to energize the system. As you can see, we're only getting 310 millivolts. If I heat that up, matter of fact, I'll just do that. Turn this on. System will not come on. Let's see if we can get this finicky propane torch to light, which might be a feat in itself. And I'm going to put this on the thermopile and get close to it. Well, going to until it went out. Yeah, I can't get the light off of there. Hate these propane torches. They're so finicky. Keep it lit. I'm going to put it on there. I can see I'm down to 210, 209 since I turned the switch to on. I'm going to start applying heat to the thermopile, and as you can see, it is going up in voltage. And right there, at about 350 millivolts, the system kicked on. And so that tells me the thermopile is bad. And there is a little extra flame, if you can see there, just at the tip of the thermopile. that comes off the main burners that helps heat the thermopile once the flame is initiated. I believe that's why that's there, but you can see a little blue flame coming out down there, and right in that area, and that helps keep that thermal generator or thermopile to keep the voltage up. And as you can see, since I've taken the flame off of it, it has dropped back down, and the voltage continues to drop because the thermopile is not working very good. And but since it's already started, it is maintaining enough voltage to keep the the regulator engaged, and it's about 230 some millivolts right now, and it will continue to slowly drop as that thermopile cools back down, but it does get down to about 190 millivolts as we saw earlier, which is enough to keep the valve energized, but definitely is not enough to energize it to start with. So that's why the fire is on and staying on, because there's just enough voltage to keep it on once it's already energized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this thing back down again and let everything cool down, and then I am going to put my handy dandy new ACE thermopile generator, whatever you want to call it, in and see if that fixes the problem. And then we will have another video. Thank you.